go ahead and pull up the code pen, fork it, and let's get started. Oh yeah, before I start, I will show you the animation that I made for our Build Week project. So this is the animation that I created, and some of the techniques I'm going to teach you over these series that I'm creating will teach you how to make animations like this for your own projects using HTML, CSS, and pure JavaScript. I'm also going to show you how to use GSAP, because if you follow me on Twitter, I've had some people reach out to me asking for some help with how to use GSAP. So we'll do that after we look at some CSS animation techniques. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so to create an animation in CSS, you have to use the word at keyframes. It's just the way you gotta do it. It's just the keyword. So just so you know, the name that goes right here could be anything. It could be banana. It doesn't have to describe the animation. I just like it to. So let's go ahead and call this spin. There are two different ways you can fill an animation. You can say from and to, if you only have two actions. But if you do have a more complicated animation that you're creating, you can also use percentages. So you can say 0% to 100%. And again, this can be two actions, but this also allows you the option to create intervals. So a lot more creativity can be used with the percentages, but for the purposes of today, we're just going to be using from and to. So let's get started with from and to for spin. So we're going to use transform, rotate, and we're going to start at 0 degrees. So make sure you have curly bracket on the end. And then transform, rotate, 360 degrees. You math wizards, you guessed it. And another curly bracket at the end. All right, so in order to apply this to an HTML element, we need to come up and give it the animation name. So we're going to take spin and apply it to the box in our HTML. And just think of it as the animation duration being a default of 0 seconds, so you do need to apply some sort of duration to your animation. And the default for iteration is 1. So make sure that you give it an iteration count if you want it to repeat more than one time. I really like infinite. All right, so now we're going to learn how to use documentation to solve problems, because obviously right away we notice that it keeps starting and stopping, and that's not the kind of behavior we really want. So let's go to Google, and we're going to use W3 School CSS animation, because that's my favorite resource, and it's going to give you browser compatibility, information about using CSS animations, and the properties and values and examples. It's really helpful. So I like to scroll all the way to the bottom because it gives me all the properties right away, and then descriptions of each property. So I think what we're looking for is not an advertisement. What the heck? Oh yeah, right. What the heck was that? That's like only gonna happen during a screen recording, right? Okay, that's awesome. Okay, let's just go right back there. Okay, so let's scroll all the way to the bottom, and we're looking for, I think we're looking for animation timing function. Specifies the speed curve of the animation. So if we click on that, we can read a little bit more about it. And the speed curve defines the time an animation uses to change from one set of CSS styles to the other. The speed curve is used to make the changes smoothly. That kind of sounds like the problem we're having. So let's just try linear, because it looks like the animation has the same speed from start to end. Let's just try it and see how that looks. Yeah, that's a nice smooth transition just over and over. So that's exactly what we needed to solve that issue. All right, so let's move on to opacity, and we can actually keep this for later by making it its own class. That's what I really like to do with animations now, and you'll see why when we use JavaScript to activate our animations. So let's move on to opacity. And we'll call this appear. Oh, we need our at keyframes, so don't forget that. That's the most important part. And then we are going to call this appear, and we're going to go from an opacity of 1 to an opacity of 0, which will be total transparency, right? All right, so save. Okay, and we can come up to the box and add an animation name of appear here so that it matches the keyframes we created, and give it an animation duration of 2 seconds, and then an animation iteration count infinite, and let's see how that looks. Oof. I don't like how it comes back in at full opacity like that. I would like for it to go from, you know what I mean, like from total transparency gradually back into opacity. So that doesn't look very good. So let's come back to the documentation, and we're going to look at, this time, animation direction. So animation direction property defines whether an animation should be played forwards, backwards, or in alternate cycles. So in this case, it sounds like we want alternate. The animation is played forwards first and then backwards. So let's try animation direction alternate. And great, it's already typed from up here, so I'm just going to copy and paste it. Great. So now we have it going from the beginning of the animation to the end, and then backwards back to the beginning, and then again to the end. So it plays in a nice continuous motion like this instead of jerking back and forth between transparency and opacity at the end. So that is how I create a nice fluid opacity animation. And let's keep that in its own class down here. And I'm just using hotkeys, so if you're not familiar with hotkeys, they will make you a lot faster. So Control-C, Control-V for copy-paste. And then if you want to, you know, comment something out really fast or uncomment it out really fast. Uh-oh, what did I do? Code pin go down? There we go. All right, so let's do scale. And then we can move on to GSAP if you would like. We'll call this scroll. We're going to go from, the property is transform, and the value is scale. And we can start at 1. A scale of 1 is just going to be the exact same size that it already is. And then we can transform to scale of, something I used for the black hole was actually a scale of 0, so it would go to nothing. So let's see how that looks. Oh wait, yeah, we gotta apply it to our item maybe. That would be helpful. Animation name. And you can use the shorthand animation and just write all of your animation directions out on one line, but I do suggest in the beginning it's easier to just write them out one line at a time for each property and value that you want to use until you get used to all of them. But that's up to you. That's a personal choice. You do you. All right, animation duration. Let's do 2 seconds. And then animation duration. It looks infinite because we keep typing and it's auto-saving, but it's not. It's only doing it once. Infinite. Whoa. But again, we're having that same problem where I would like it to alternate. So let's try that again. Let's do animation direction alternate. There we go. Whoa. That's pretty awesome. I love animation way too much. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw this guy into its own class, and I'm actually going to save that for the next series, is how to make these things occur on a click. Just like in my website for black hole, you know, when you click the send to the black hole button, it made the whole item go into the black hole. I'm going to save that for next time, because now we're going to go ahead and get into how to use GSAP. So I shared with you this link, so you go ahead and visit this link. There's lots of great information about GSAP, and there's a wonderful Get Started button right here that brings you to a page with a lot of information. So if you just want to get started in 10 seconds with GSAP, this is what you do. If you're using CodePen, if you're not using CodePen, you're going to need this script, and you're going to put it in your HTML document underneath the body tag, I believe. I haven't messed with it in an IDE yet, but that's normally where you put scripts. But if that's not correct, correct me. I have not played with it yet. That's going to be in, we'll probably use VS Code for the next one. We'll see. But in CodePen, it's really easy, because you don't even have to visit the GSAP site. You just go to Settings, JavaScript, and then you're going to search and I already did it here, so let me get rid of it. GSAP, and that's it. So let me do it for you one more time. So you're going to go to Settings, JavaScript, search CDNs, and you're going to search GSAP, click on it, and it's going to automatically add the script tag for you. Save and close. All right, so now we can come into JavaScript file and use TweenMax. So this is some basic usage right here, and obviously there's more we can do, but we're going to do the exact same things we were doing. So let's take an example of code, and this is what I do a lot of the time with documentation, is I take an example and I comment it out, and so now I don't have to worry too much about syntax, because it's right there for me. So if I want to do rotate on that box, we're going to select the class, the duration in seconds. We'll make it 2, because it can be any number of seconds. It doesn't have to be this 3. And then the property, and so in TweenMax, it's rotation 360. All right, so save. There we go. See if infinite works with TweenMax. I'm just shooting in the dark. All right, no. I haven't researched how to solve these problems that I did with CSS yet, because that's why I think CSS is very powerful. I haven't even used GSAP that much yet, so that'll be in my next series after I use it a little bit more, because you know, you can play with so much with CSS. I haven't even had the need to move on to GSAP yet, so I do want to show you though, so you know how to use it. All right, so let's say you wanted to do opacity here. Oh wait, it can't be 360, good grief. So save. It's gone. All right, and then scale, same thing. All right, so I'll show you one more thing, because TweenMax isn't very cool unless you can like apply it to a click or something. I feel like it's fine if it's on a page load, I guess, for like a header, but I think things are cooler when you can interact and control them as the user. So let's go ahead and define a selector basically. So we're going to call it box, document, query, selector. And we're going to select that box by class name, and then, or we're selecting it as a query selector, and then make sure you put the dot, because it is a class name. So anyway, the next thing we're going to do is take our item, which is that box, and we're going to add event listener, and the event is listening for a click. And we can now add our TweenMax. So Now when you click the button, it scales away. But it would be cool if it came back, right? So let's make it to where maybe it comes back. That would be nice. So instead of scaling all the way, let's just do half. There we go. And so now what I want is when I click this again that it comes back. So what we're gonna do for that is we're gonna add a second event listener to that box within the same event listener. And these are arrow functions. You don't have to write it as an arrow function. I just did this time. I usually don't write them as arrow functions. And so we're going to take the same class, the box, the same duration, 2 seconds, and this time we're going to scale it back to its original size, which would be 1. So now with this code, what should happen is when I click it, it'll scale half its size, and when I click it again, it'll scale back up. Awesome. So it only does it on one time, so we would have to do some more work in order to allow that to go back and forth like that. So that will again be part of additional problem solving in future tutorials. If you like this, please share it with others. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to improve. This was my very first coding tutorial, so I hope that it helped you with how to use GSAP and some CSS animations. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.